just swallow them. That's an extremely dangerous move. One, aside threatening our neighbors, it also creates a dangerous motive for war. It is very misleading, and the consequence could be catastrophic. And we have seen this during the war in Tigray. Regardless of what caused the war, what I was saying, the framing, the narrative that accompanied the war around numbers. They are 5% and we are 95%. They are 5 million, we are 95 million. The consequence was what we saw. The consequence in terms of the war mentality, it's really bad politics. It's a bad narrative, it needs to be abandoned. Second, numbers do not guarantee a better outcome, an upper outcome for Ethiopia. That's why we have to be careful. And the better option is for Ethiopia to convert its numeric strengths, its geographic strengths, into economic power, so that our neighbors we shouldn't even fight our neighbors. What Ethiopia needed to do is stabilize itself, bring about sustainable, rapid economic growth, so that all our neighbors who have port will have to fight over us. Look, there are 4 or 5 countries with coastal access, and we are their only market, except Kenya or Uganda. For most of them, we are the only ones that they can rely on, and we can make them compete. At the same time, we can continue to argue with them, negotiate with them, bargain with them, to give us more access for security and for military purposes in exchange for continuing to cooperate with them for commercial purposes. So there are a number of arguments you can make. I think an idea of turning the number. But on this point, the most dangerous for Ethiopia's internal issue is this effort by Abiy to bring the Assab issue to the Oromos. It's one thing to say Ethiopia has historical, legal, and so economic reasons for wanting to have, the port in Somali coast or Eritrea coast. It's another thing to ethnicize it. This is not an Oromo issue. This is not an Amhara issue. This is not a Tigrayan issue. This is an Ethiopian issue. There is no reason why the ruling party and the ruling clique have to, bring it to the Oromos. If you are Eritrean, I understand where our Eritrean brothers are so offended when Abiy and his cronies continue to say, "Oh, we are going to celebrate our Eritrea in Red Sea." If you take the modern nation state, the Red Sea belongs to Afar people, our brothers. They don't even see how offensive it is to our Afar brothers who share, linguistic and historical ties with us and the history of marginalization and repression. It is counterproductive to the objective of access to the sea. It's also counterproductive for building and strengthening internal cohesion in Ethiopia, and it has to be dropped.
Yeah, that brings us to, because you said, I think the best argument Ethiopia can provide its neighbors is its economic strengths and stability, I would add, as a stable country. One of your arguments in your article is that the economic state, the current economic state, and the moral exhaustion will not allow for a possibility of another war. You are arguing that Ethiopia's economy is collapsing under debt, inflation, and corruption. Now, I am no economist. I would, argue the economists to say that. War is luxury the country cannot afford at the moment. I think it does not require one to be an economist to argue that. You also argued that by contrast, Eritrea's militarized command economy is, shall I say, grimly designed to survive conflict. You created a very interesting parallel there, that a new war would devastate Ethiopia's finances and Ethiopia's economy to the core. What is the state of the economy that make you to make this assessment about a war economy and the impossibility of it?
As I've always argued, Abiy inherited an economy that was already in trouble. After Malas's death, the economy was mismanaged under Haile Mariam. We all remember how the generals came in and mismanaged, siphoned the money from the large-scale projects that would have transformed the country. And instead of engaging in a recovery process, he made the economic situation worse by engaging the country in two destructive endeavors. One, the wars. The wars, depending on who you ask, the cost has been 60 billion to 100 billion cost in Tigray, in Amhara, in Oromia. And as I said earlier, these wars are not fought in the peripheral areas. So we cannot just count the direct cost of the war, the opportunity cost, the culture that has been disrupted, the internal trade that has been disrupted, the foreign direct investment that did not come or flew away. So the economy has been in serious trouble. And you don't have to be an economist study. You just have to have a relative in hometown. You just have to have a civil servant or a small business owner or even a wealthy person. I have not seen anybody in Ethiopia today who does not complain about the economic situation. The civil servant is, as you see, they have been protesting. We've been echoing their voice. They have difficulty meeting their basic food and shelter requirements. The small businesses, they have been overtaxed. The bigger businesses, they are overtaxed. They are exposed to massive corruptions. So the economy is in a very, very serious crisis. What the country needed to do now is to stop the bleeding of the economy. How? Stop the war, contain corruption, engage in reconstruction and recovery. The other stuff what Abiy did over the last 7 years, whatever money that's left of the war, instead of directing it to the productive sector of the economy that could create wealth, that could create employment for young people, he spent it on this luxurious projects, this fantasy projects, parks, resorts aimed at attracting tourists. Tourism accounts to just a little over 2% of the economy. But if you look at the projects Abiy built and inaugurated and celebrated over the last 7 years, they account to something 70%. So what was draining the country? Whatever is left in the government coffin were spent on luxury, $10 billion palace, resorts, and parks. So the economy has shrunk. And in my view, the economy has collapsed. The intervention by IMF and World Bank has not worked. It just made things worse, both at macroeconomic level, but also at a local level. So the reason I bring the economy into the war issue is Ethiopia does not have an economic muscle that can carry another war, another adventure, particularly outside the country's border. The Eritrean economy is weak, no question. Ethiopia's GDP is manifold larger than the Eritrean. But the expenditure Eritrean government does is, the Eritrean government's expenditure is much, much smaller. It has much more smaller bureaucracy, smaller expenditure for domestic projects, and also it has a military that's largely conscripted. So, when you go to war, expenditure will grow exponentially on Ethiopian side, and that expenditure, and you have to give me some other time to talk about this. That expenditure, much of that government expenditure is not going to go to the war effort. It will be siphoned. I've looked at the books for the expenditure during the Tigray war. I have worked with some economists who estimate close to 40% of what was allocated for war to purchase weapons and other stuff from outside the country actually went to private pockets, to the generals and brokers in the middle. So, if we go to war, from where the current status of Ethiopian economy, the economy will completely flatten, and that will create the domestic situation worse. It will exacerbate the insurgencies because young people will be flooding the rebel camps in much larger size than they're doing right now, and it will create domestic uprising, and it will make things much worse. So the war is not going to be a cure. The reason Abiy want to agitate war is because you want to divert from dealing with these domestic problems. I am telling him, no, it's just going to make things worse for you.
To make a disclaimer, this is something that is absolutely confusing for many. There is a clear sign of preparation for war, because when you frame that as an existential, that means you are going to do whatever is necessary to achieve that. So there is that framing on one hand, but there is also this parallel framing that what they want is a peaceful access to. I don't know how we can reconcile that, because when you hear the, mid-level to senior generals, what you hear, the rhetoric every day you hear is that it is a must, when the army chief of staff said a few weeks ago that we need three things. One is peace, development, and access to sea. And he has framed all the three as existential. I completely agree with him that we need peace and development, and both of them are existential. But once you frame the access to the sea issue as an existential, I don't know how you can achieve that without employing some sort of force. And this leads us to your other argument. What does it mean for Ethiopia's foreign diplomacy? Your argument about the diplomatic inversion. You argue that, yes, we all agree Ethiopia was once a diplomatic powerhouse in the Horn. Many agree it has lost that credibility today. You mentioned about the deal with Somaliland, which didn't materialize. The erratic foreign policy and the internal repression that the Ethiopian government is facing criticism, be it in this crackdown against independent media or crackdown against opposition political parties and all this. Meanwhile, in Eritrea, considered to be a pariah state, now appears more stable. They even have reestablished relations with the US government and are seen as a predictable in the eyes of the region. It's a startling reversal for Ethiopia, I think. But this is a question that I want you to entertain on this. What were the key aspects? In your argument, you outlined that one. What made our foreign policy so unpredictable? What is the key, the critical points of inversion that led us to lose that status of a diplomatic powerhouse or an anchor state status in the Horn of Africa?
I'm not a diplomat, but my understanding from political science perspective is there are key elements that make a country diplomatically strong. Strong internal stability and a strong security apparatus, military as well as intelligence, strong economy, and well-crafted foreign policy and capable diplomats. Other countries strengthen their relationship with you, if you provide them security assistance, if they see you as a credible, reliable, predictable security partner, or if they see you as offering economic opportunity, they want to trade with you, they want to do business with you. Ethiopia's profile in the international diplomatic world was increasing, for much of the late 20th century and early 21st century. Why? One, despite gross human rights violations, despite all political crisis, there was relative domestic stability. The security sector was strong. it was moving way beside security within its borders and providing security assistance to neighbors as part of the international peacekeeping mission. We know in Sudan, South Sudan, in Somalia, in other parts.